Hey, what's up guys? JB here. Final Fantasy XIII is returning this week to War of the Visions, and the whole cast is returning once again with Lightning, Snow, and Hope. But a new unit will be joining their ranks. That is none other than Fang. Now, we've known about this unit for quite some time. She was actually part of the original event, and we did see her artwork even back then. And as always, I think they have done an exceptional job with it. What about the unit itself, though? What can she do, and is she going to be worth your hard-earned Visior? Well, we're going to unpack all of that here today, so without further ado, let's get started. Fang is a new 90 cost lightning unit. She will be representing that spear weapon class. She has a base 3-4 movement and she wears hats and cloth. Starting with her TMR, this one is an accessory and it provides a party effect which will imbue your attacks with an on-hit effect that negates your opponent's ability to gain CT up. Of course, King Bradley is probably the most famous example of a character who does excel with that, but the new Ashen Cantone as well is another good example. So I do actually kind of like this TMR as a new tech to kind of help counter against some of those units, but definitely not something that I would pull explicitly for. Looking at her stats here next, actually a pretty solid overall stat line, no huge holes here statistically. Her strongest attribute is definitely going to be that raw attack value coming in at a base value of 420, and that does put her within the top 15 of units in War of the Visions. Her innate value doesn't really fall off too far from that either, as we have seen on some other units in the past. And she does have access to an attack passive that you can use to actually augment that and bring it up even further. Her agility is another strong factor here. She is above average in both her base and innate value. Again, she does have access to a passive that she can bring that up even further, which does put her among some of the speedier units in the game. Her weakest points here in the stat line are definitely going to be those dex and crit values, really just middling in those areas, even coming in just a little bit below average. And I would say as sort of a frontline brawler, the HP value, although it is above average, I do wish that it was just a little bit higher here. She is just slightly above average in that category. For the defensive stats, Fang is going to be coming in with 0 defense and 0 spirit innately. Her resistances are going to be 20% against slash and then 10% against both missile and magic. She's coming in neutral against pierce. She is carrying 1 weakness and it is going to be 10% against strike damage. On the ailment front, we're going to have 50% against both immobilize and stun, with the lesser 10% here against slow. Not bad overall here. I do actually particularly like that stun resistance. That one has been particularly annoying as of late, especially in that VV matchup. So her coming in there with 50% passively, she can put on a Trust Stone there and just completely negate anyone's ability here to stun her. For her mastery ability, she is going to be getting that reduced AP consumption of 15%, always valuable on these physical damage dealers with their reduced AP pools. She is going to be getting 10% pierce res penetration there as well. That second one there is definitely an interesting one to see. 4 years plus into the game, that is something they've been hesitant to give to pretty much anyone in the game. Now, if you do max her out to level 140, she will pick up 20 accuracy, which we did factor into those totals above, as well as that 15% area resistance. Another one that we always like to see. I do like that accuracy here as well. I just wish that it was a little bit higher, or that maybe she had access to more of it elsewhere in her kit. Although she is a little bit above average in this category in terms of her innate value, she does fall just a little bit lower on the accuracy index than I would like to see. But we'll actually take a closer look at that in the mock builds. In terms of passive, she does have some pretty decent options here, but overall I wouldn't say is a huge strength for this unit. She doesn't get any of the top tier passives with like 3 or 4 effects like we've seen on other units. I think that these two that I've highlighted here are probably the best options to kind of get that defense pen and agility. I do low-key like the strike resist that comes packaged in there as well for that. And that's going to completely negate any natural damage type weakness that she has, put her at a 5% positive in that category. For an alternate, I do like the 15% physical damage up that she has access to as well. It is conditional though based on her HP value, which I'm not a huge fan of. So there is a little bit of a trade-off there with that one. Counter ability is also not a huge strength for this unit in my opinion. I have highlighted her Sword Guard equivalent, which is a 30% damage reduction, but at just a 20% proc chance. I think that one's probably her best one, the one that I would use most often. Otherwise, she does have some counter attacks, but they are at a relatively short range. Alright guys, let's take a look at the main kit here next, and we're going to start off with the buffs. Her self buff is going to provide her a Courage or Immortal Spirit effect, as well as a 20 flat AP restore. I like this one well enough, it's fine. Courage, unfortunately, just doesn't have the value that it once did. It is removed relatively easily by many of the units that are being used out there in the meta, and not only by skills that are able to explicitly remove it, but also by follow-up attacks, which have been a big part of the meta as of late. Unfortunately, we are also lacking in units that can protect that status, similar to what Vivi and Helena can do with re-raise. Currently, only Zidane as a Wind Dagger unit is the only one in the game that has that capability right now. Her party buff is up here next, and this one is exceptional. She's going to get a 7,500 HP physical barrier. 3 of these effects are going to be going to her allies as well: 25% agility, 40% attack, and 25% unit resistance. And then finally, she is getting 50% reaction block to herself on top. And all of these buffs do last for an enhanced 4 turns rather than the usual 3. Very solid buff here all around, definitely among the better ones that we've seen as of late. And I do think that extra turn of use here could have the potential maybe to swing some fights in your favor, if the fights are really dragging on. Moving on to the attack skills here, her low AP ability is a range 2, range height 1, has a low 121% mod. And this one is an absorb attack. I actually do like this one as a finisher skill quite a bit, just for that capability to heal yourself up there in the mid fight. And she can technically hit 2 units with this, as it is a piercing style attack if they are lined up perfectly for her. Now her second attack here is going to be getting up to a range of 6 with a range height of 3 on that cross area of effect. It is coming in with the medium 165 modifier. Just a single effect on this skill, and it will remove your opponent's ability to destroy physical barriers. So this one definitely synergizes perfectly with that party buff there that we looked at with the big HP barrier. Now this one is a javelin throw arcing style attack, so she can actually pick up additional range here on this one if she does have height differential from her opponent. And with her high jump value, that's something that's, definitely within a possibility. Now we have seen A2 putting that barrier seal to great use in the game here over the last 6 to 8 weeks, so definitely nice to see another character here who can do the same thing. Her third attack here is going to be a range 3, range height 1. It's coming in with that large 200% mod. Prior to the damage, we have 2 effects: a physical barrier break, as well as an 80% defense crush. And that is going to be working similar to Helena's break there of area resistance, only this one is going to be checked against your defense instead. So for example, if you have 100 defense, you're going to be going down to just 20. If you have 50 defense, you're going down to 10. So that debuff, that's the first of its type that we've seen come into the game. It's very powerful and definitely going to be good for that tank busting potential. Her fourth skill here is going to be a multi-select of 2 targets. Pretty decent range on it with a range of 4 and a range height of 1. Thankfully, I think that they did realize their mistake with Elias Stag's impact skill, and thankfully we haven't seen any of these select attacks come in with that extreme range and range height since that point. Now prior to the damage, this one will imperil your target's pierce resistance by 25. This one is also a high accuracy attack, picking up 30% to hit there as well. Now finally, if she does land a killing blow on one of her targets, she will heal herself up on that as well. I believe it's a 30% heal for each target, but I'm not 100% on that. I will need to do some further testing there. Now last up, we're going to have the Limit Burst. This one again is going to be that range 4 with the range height of 1. Prior to the damage, this will increase her defense penetration by 40 for 3 turns. And if the debuff lands, it will increase the modifier value up to 260%. Now this one does have a sequential effect here as well. It's an all new one for the game, and it will make a large diamond area of effect blast around your target, and any enemy caught within that will take a 75% of whatever damage you did to your initial target. Pretty unique limit burst here on this one. We haven't seen anything quite like this before. All it's really doing though is damage, so you're really going to have to do a bunch of damage there to your initial target for it to have a big impact. I do like it well enough though. It's pretty cool. So there will be a brand new vision card for Fang that will be coming in the second week of the event. This one's going to be effective for the Axe, Glove, Spear, and Sword C Knight weapon groups. The party effects on this one are going to have 30 human killer. We're also going to be picking up some reaction block and some accuracy there on top. Pretty nice all-around offensive focused card here. I think it's got a pretty useful combination of effects. Nice stats and bestowed on this one as well with the 2 agility and 10 area resist. The hollow effect on this one is going to be for Guild War, which I know some people specifically look for that one. And it will be providing a unique effect we haven't seen on a vision card before, and that is magic area mitigation, depending on the size of the AoE, something that we've seen on some buffs in the game. So this one will give you 12% magical mitigation on those diamond area effect spells. I do like that they are experimenting with some new effects here on the cards, and I do think this one is a pretty good one. I do just wish that they didn't split up the mitigation by both area size and then by damage type as well. I think that it does make it feel a little bit mid for some situations that you might run into. If you aren't fighting magic, obviously this isn't going to carry any value at all. In any event, I do think this is a solid overall card. It is packed with units here, as you can see. We always love to see those cards with 4 weapon groups coming in on it. You just get a lot more potential value and use out of it when they do. Now, speaking of weapon groups, let's take a look at Fang's Spear weapon group here next. In terms of the meta, I do feel like I keep waiting for Spear to have that transcendent moment where they become sort of the top group and top team in the game. Because top to bottom, this weapon class is stacked with great cards and great units. I just feel like it hasn't truly coalesced and they've had that moment where they are really the top dog. Despite that though, it is still very playable, very strong in the game. It's pretty crazy when you look at the amount of units here that are included in this group. It's the largest one in the game and it's not really even super close. A lot of them though are older 80 cost or lower rarity units from the first 1 to 2 years of the game. Even so, a lot of breadth and a lot of depth here in terms of these unit options. In terms of connections to other weapon groups here for Spear, I'd say the strongest partner thus far in practice has probably been the Devout and Fist groups, both sharing some very key cards there in terms of unit resistance, agility, and area resistance. I do think that the groundwork for some other connections is starting to be fleshed out here more recently. You look at the Axe group, the Bow and Dagger groups as well. They have been getting some nice cards here as of late, and I do think could be some clues to the group's future potential. In any event, I do think that Fang is finding herself a home here in probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest overall weapon groups in the game. There is just so much to play with here if you have the different pieces, so much you can trade in and trade out and find different combinations. Now over in the JP side, Volk was literally just announced. He is a new 70 cost Fire Spear unit. Looks like he's going to be a new tank here for the group. So that is just another piece you can add on to the pile here. And considering all that, I think that we could be seeing this group making some noise here as the year progresses. Alright guys, here's a mock build that I put together for Fang, and we're going to go through this one here really quickly. Of course, she can fit in with the mono lightning setup that, goes without saying. I do think that the spear angle that we were just looking at is a bit more of a compelling option for her. So today I'm going to be pairing her with Young Eld and Flagbearer Glaciella. Now this build is kind of an all-arounder, kind of good against a little bit of everything. But since Strike is kind of in the forefront of the meta at the moment, I have put a bit of extra focus in defending against that particular team, with my resistances and also with my accuracy. For equipment, I'm going to be using Fang's all-new spear. It has some nice unique passives specifically for her. She's going to get some initial AP on there as well, which will have her relatively worry-free in that department, considering all of her AP management she comes along with. Now, one of the unique passives is 15 accuracy on there, so I have built the aim version of this one. That way, I'm able to use that sort of as my accuracy item, and I don't need to resort here to using an Alex ring or a marshmallow, and I'm able to bring in that survival vest here for the unit resist instead. Now, another nice weapon option for her could be the 9S Spear Cruel Arrogance. We just had a rerun of that here with the Nier Automata event, and certainly that has a lot more damage potential there with the 30 lightning attack on it. Personally, I do like Fang's weapon though, just for an overall package and the different things that it gives you. Like I said, it definitely gives you the option to maybe forego an Alex ring, depending on the accuracy threshold that you're trying to reach. Now, for an Esper here in the build, I'm going to go with Dark Tetra for the combination of accuracy and pierce attack, but also to cover her earth weakness. Dark Tetra can get up to 25 earth resistance, which will essentially eliminate that natural earth counter of hers. And I do think that that, along with her HP bearer that she has, will make her not so much of a pushover against many of the Earth units out there. For a vision card setup here, our main effects are going to be covered by the Full Metal Alchemist and Young Eld vision cards, and we're going to be bringing in Fang's new card here for the Man-Eater reaction block and additional accuracy. For Trust Stones here in the build, 2P is a pretty common pick right now out there in the meta. So again, I have tried to hedge against that weakness just a bit here as well, bringing not only the accuracy in with the luck set, but also within the passives here, I have picked up that earth and strike resistance. On the offensive side, I'm going to be going with an agility set. It does get her up to a very fast 122 agility. For the passives there, I have brought in a bit of healing power to help a little bit with the self-healing that she has. Within her main job sub, she does actually have a party heal as well, which I do like quite a bit. Does get a 40% flat heal to your allies as well. Aside from that, I do bring in some reaction block, which, along with the vision card and her self buff, will have her ignoring counter reactions completely. Now, like I was saying there just a moment ago, her agility here in the build is quite high, so I do think that there is breathing room there that if you were trying to get even more accuracy, you could very well bring in an accuracy set here and still be very competitive here in terms of her overall speed. So that is the build, guys. Again, kind of an all-around one here, but I do think that we have some nice synergy here with both Glassy and Young Elds. They both have nice barriers, and her being able to protect those will definitely help them out quite a bit. If you are interested in taking a look at the finer details of the build, as always, I will put us the link to it in the description below. So what is my verdict today on Fang? Well, as we've been talking about, with Fang, it's all about barriers. Not only does she have a big physical HP barrier that she can put on, but she can also protect that barrier and do it from a very long range. And not only that, she does have a skill to remove it from her opponents as well, which is always welcome. Fang's agility is another strong asset for her. We just saw it there in the mock builds. She can definitely get up there, especially in a spear team, which does have access to multiple 18% agility cards. Her AP management is definitely another strength for her. I don't think that she will be all that worried about AP in battle. She's bringing in not only an AP consumption bonus from her mastery, but also getting some nice AP from her buffs and also her unique weapon. Fang is going to be a pretty good team enabler there as well in terms of her attack type utility. She can technically get up to a 40% Pierce in Peril if you do utilize her High Dragoon party buff. And then she has that impressive 80% defense crush, which I do think could be a really valuable tank busting tool. On the more negative side, although Fang isn't technically weak against magic, she's not really all that strong against it either, packing just an average amount of area resist innately, and not really any other tool to defend herself against it. Her passives and counter abilities, although I do think that they're respectable and serviceable, I think they are just sort of lacking a bit of that extra oomph that we have seen on other characters that have transcended the meta. And I do think that you could say the same thing about her counter abilities as well. From a statistical perspective, although Fang's stat line was fairly impressive overall, she is coming in just a bit more average when it is concerning her crit and accuracy totals, and that was on full display in that mock build that we were just looking at. And despite putting a decent amount of attention and focus onto the accuracy stat, she was only achieving roughly a 370% hit rate, which is going to have her pretty far off from hitting top-end evade units, which could be a really big problem for Fang as she doesn't have any 100% hit in her kit to fall back on. Now, although Gumi did put some focus in the accuracy area for this unit, I don't think that they put quite enough for it to make a true asset for her to be a highly accurate unit. And instead, I think that she does end up being a bit closer to the pack. You do need to invest into it quite a bit for her to be good in that area. At the end of the day, I don't really think that any of these negatives are really backbreaking or huge red flags, nothing that you aren't really able to overcome in terms of your builds. But at the same time, I'm not sure if the positives are really setting herself, far apart enough from the pack to, be a truly competitive or compelling new pickup. I do think that she can be a viable unit. I definitely think that she can do her job fine enough, but I just don't expect her to be sort of the next busted or next meta-topping unit. So that's it, guys. That is going to conclude my review today on Fang from Final Fantasy XIII. It does always feel just a little bit disappointing to me when these Final Fantasy collab units don't really come in swinging and lighting things up right from the get-go. I do know that Fang is a favorite from the game for many out there. She was certainly one of my favorites when I did play through it. So considering that, I think there's bound to be just a little bit of disappointment here on this one. I do feel it myself as well. Even with her being sort of that lower 90 cost unit, who should be a bit easier to pull, I think that when you do compare her kit and her potential impact against another recent 90 cost unit that we had in 2P, it just seems night and day in comparison. At the same time, I can't help but think that perhaps if Fang had been a different element, maybe she could have come in and had maybe a bit more of an immediate impact. I just don't see a hugely compelling reason to use her on a Lightning team at the moment, considering all of the other nice options that Lightning has today. On the flip side, for a Spear team, I do like that a bit more, as we did see there in the mock builds. And perhaps once we see Volk's kit and once that is fully revealed, perhaps some hidden potential here for Fang might be fully realized. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, as the days unfold. Definitely hit me up in the comments down below. Let me know what you guys think about Fang as a unit. What did you think about her in Final Fantasy XIII, and will you be pulling her now in War of the Visions? While you're down there, if you did enjoy the video today, hit that like button for me. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, hit that subscribe button if you want to see more. And that's really all that I have to say for today. So as always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.